Soon after the shadow figure, a lot more stuff started happening. One time my sister woke me up to give me my ADHD meds and I felt a hand firmly grab my shoulder. I asked my sister not to touch me because I don't like physical touch. She told me she was in fact not touching me, so I opened my eyes and sure enough, her hands were not close to me. She was holding a cup of water and my medicine, but the feeling had not left. I told her something was touching me and she brushed it off. I felt sick to my stomach. Not long after I felt hands on me, I heard scratching on my walls next to my head. I'd be willing to brush it off as something outside, but it was too loud for that. I went to sleep shortly after. After all of that, though, I started waking up with scratches and sometimes even watched them form. After everything that was happening, I knew something was wrong. I felt something telling me to check my parents' bathroom. Hey y'all, welcome back. Today I have more of your own terrifying stories to read to you today, and I am quite nervous for this one because I've already read one and it was terrifying, so let's get into it. I heard footsteps and I don't like it. Can I just be so real with you right now? The paranormal activity in my life has kicked up quite a lot lately, and I'm trying not to talk about it. But when things happen on video, I have to address it, and I don't like it, so, Let's get into the first story before I have a breakdown. My name is Emma, and this happened back when I was 14. My friend Evelyn had invited me over for a sleepover on the Friday before school started since her parents would be out of town. We would have the whole house to ourselves. I agreed and met her at her house. It started off as any normal sleepover would until probably around midnight. Evelyn suggested we go for a walk in the woods behind her house since she wanted some fresh air. The air conditioning was broken, so the heat in her house was stifling. It was late summer, so the night wasn't freezing and it was very relaxing. We were just talking about school when suddenly I felt like something was off. Evelyn didn't notice. I'd stopped paying attention and kept talking. I looked around and had the overwhelming feeling of being watched, so I tapped Evelyn. She looked over and noticed something was wrong. I whispered to her that I felt like we were being watched, and a few moments later, we heard a twig snap. It snapped a few feet to the left of us, and we both booked it. As we ran, we could hear something in pursuit of us. I tried to see what it was, but it was dark. We bolted to her house, and the second we were inside, we checked that every single door was locked. Finally, after calming ourselves down, we locked ourselves in her room, making sure every way in was blocked. What was creepier was what we found in the morning. We could see our own footsteps leaving and re-entering the house, but there was another pair, leading right up to the door. We tracked the steps and they went to every door outside. They even went to Evelyn's window. We could just barely see a faint handprint on the window. The hand was far too big to belong to either of us. I called my mom and she picked us both up. Needless to say, I never slept over at Evelyn's house again. Outside of paranormal stuff, I think you guys almost got. I don't think that was paranormal. That's scary on a whole other level. Oh my gosh. Let's get into the second story. I've always been a bit of a strange child in the sense that I've been described as having a vivid imagination. And up until recently, that had been what I put it down as, my vivid imagination. It usually included seeing things like shadow figures in my room, hearing people speak to me during the night, and sometimes in the small of the morning, as well as having imaginary friends that I intended to describe as creepy. Creepy yet comforting is what I would say. It got to the point where I was taken to speak to a counselor about them. This story takes place when I was around 7, which was a little bit before I stopped responding to any activity I witnessed. My parents were at the store with my younger sister. This was not uncommon as my parents trusted me to be left alone at home for a short amount of time, but not my sister. Unfortunately, I had slept past the point that they headed out to buy her stuff for breakfast. Bear in mind, they had left me a note on my bedside table. I just hadn't read it yet. After looking throughout the entire house only to not find anyone, I started panicking. Instead of doing the smart thing, I sat in my room and started crying. Something important to note is that at the time, my closet door was open. I'd always stated that my closet doors were where my imaginary friends lived, and that's where I saw the most of the shadowy figures. While I was sitting on my bed crying, I suddenly felt like enveloping softness, something feeling like a blanket. It was strangely soothing, and yet I had no idea what it could have originally came from. I was both alone in the house and my blankets were nowhere near me. The feeling had been familiar, like something felt before, but yet slightly unknown at the same time. Honestly, this wasn't super scary, but now that I think of it, it's definitely something a bit strange, and I just wanted to send this to you. Throughout my life, I've always felt protected and cared for, even when I was going through a particularly rough patch. Now I think it may not have just been a feeling. I think you had little ghosty buddies. That's kind of wholesome. I kind of love that. Here's the final story, and it is on the longer side. I've been a fan for a while, and up until recently, I haven't thought of sending in any stories, but the more I try piecing things together, the more and more they don't connect. I would say I'm a very spiritual person. I don't know and couldn't necessarily say that I'm able to see ghosts or anything like that, but I can clearly dream about something and it happens in real life after I've seen it in my dreams. That's not the relevant thing though. Let's move on to the actual stories and things I've seen. I want to know about the dreams. I was laying on the couch in the morning. It was around midsummer. I live in a house my mom and dad built. They don't believe in the paranormal, and my sister does, but doesn't believe anything I claim to witness. I don't have many people to go to because I don't want to sound crazy, but I was laying with my 3 dogs just playing on my phone because I have insomnia and wasn't able to sleep after taking melatonin. I heard some cracking from the hallway and just brushed it off as my mom, but a few seconds later I saw a shadow and again for some reason brushed it off, until the creaking was by my head. I looked up to see a black cloudy figure with red eyes and a top hat. I was shocked and started crying, calling out for my mom. I gained enough courage to run to her bathroom and tell her what happened. She went to my sister's room, woke up my sister's friend, and said, "Hey, can you sit in the living room with me?" She's scared. I was embarrassed, but whatever. I didn't want to be alone. Soon after the shadow figure, a lot more stuff started happening. One time my sister woke me up to give me my ADHD meds, and I felt a hand firmly grab my shoulder. I asked my sister not to touch me because I don't like physical touch. She told me she was in fact not touching me, so I opened my eyes and sure enough, her hands were not close to me. She was holding a cup of water and my medicine, but the feeling had not left. I told her something was touching me and she brushed it off. I felt sick to my stomach. Not long after, I felt hands on me. I heard scratching on my walls next to my head. I'd be willing to brush it off as something outside, but it was too loud for that. I went to sleep shortly after. After all of that, though, I started waking up with scratches and sometimes even watched them form. After everything that was happening, I knew something was wrong. I felt something telling me to check my parents' bathroom, and surely enough, they have a mirror facing a mirror. I moved the mirror away because that was most definitely what was causing it, but as soon as I touched that mirror, I felt sick. I almost threw up. Things only got worse after because I would come into the bathroom to get some towels because we keep our towels in there, and every time I moved that mirror back, it would come back to facing the mirror on the wall. I hated it. I told my parents, but they only laughed and told me it was fine. I started hearing things mimic the sounds of family members. I once heard my deceased dog barking in the living room like he used to. I miss him. So that does sound, and they mentioned it in their story too, like that mirror was creating a vortex. But I really do not like the lack of support that they're getting from their family. I can't imagine having that because my parents were always, well, at least my mom was really in tune with supernatural things, so it was never like, oh, you're not experiencing that. They listened to me. But I feel so bad for people that don't have that same support because, I mean, there's stuff out there. And the fact that it was like bothering them so bad that they were moving this mirror and their parents didn't even care that it was getting moved back, I don't like that. That is all for the stories today. This one was on the shorter side, but I will be back to read like 5 stories in like 2 days. So you'll be back. We'll have more. It's fine. It'll be all right. But I'm going to go ahead and end this one. Thank you guys so much for tuning in with me, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.